Hi, my name's Cordy, and people often ask me, John, who's your favourite actor? And my answer is, it's Russell Crowe. And now, I don't want you to laugh. Let's be honest, he's done some fantastic work. The main reason that Russell Crowe is my favourite actor of all time, and I maintain is the best actor who's ever lived, is due to the line in Gladiator, which we all know is a fantastic film, isn't it? There's a line in the film there where he says, "What we do in this life echoes through eternity." A lot of my videos, to me, it feels like they go on forever. That's something that I like to happen also with my reverbs. And so this video is about reverb and a shootout between some of the things that I've got around me, some of which aren't even reverb pedals. But all I wanted to do in this video is show you some of the things that I like in my bedroom. We'll call it a studio for the sake of appearances. Actually, the bed's in the other room, so if the room doesn't have a bed, is it still a bedroom? We did the philosophy yesterday. Anyway, right, I've already asked that question. I'm getting deja vu. Anyway, that's a repeat. So, the Strymon Timeline. The reason that I thought about making this video, I was talking to David Beebe, friend of the channel, mentor, and he's also my health advisor. We were talking about the Strymon I setting, and on the FM3, we were trying to get that kind of sound out of it. Actually, I think both of us have managed to get somewhere in that realm. Obviously there's lots of different presets with the ice thing, so I think mine jumps up a seventh, the one that I like. Sorry, not a seventh, a fifth, but that's seven, whatever. David likes long slides, which I think was inspired by Rudyard Kipling, as well as being a good writer, makes exceedingly good cakes. And then, yeah, so on the FM3 I was using the Plex Shift and the Nimbostratus reverb, which is one of these really cool cloud reverbs. I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. Anyway, yeah, so on the FM3 we're using, I think, the Plex Shift, and I think I ended up using the Nimbostratus reverb. But one of the things that I really like about any kind of modeler for this kind of thing is that you can combine loads of different things and, you know, set holds on pedals and stuff. And I think the interface of a modeler, particularly the FM3 or like the Helix stuff, is particularly inviting for doing this sort of thing, given that you can just see on screen what's happening and you can see which parameters are changing with a foot switch. I think a screen really helps with that. So that's why the FM3 appears on this list. And this tone in specific was one that I really liked. I was just experimenting with this morning. And the other really cool thing about it is you can kind of change the diffusion settings, and that kind of sets this thing into a whole kind of infinite kind of reverby wash. And I think it kind of just sounds beautiful for this sort of thing. So you heard at the outset the Strymon Timeline, which was sort of what kicked this kind of video off in general, and the ice setting. Now, obviously this is actually a delay pedal, so I'm gonna shout out to people, after you watch any part of this video, do I need to be getting a big sky? Because I'm being told that I probably do, and I don't know if I'm just missing out on an orgy of sounds. Now, these are both new to me. The Walrus Audio Slo, Liana bought me for Christmas, and I was really impressed with how that sounded and kind of the inspiration that pedal can bring. The one thing that I didn't like about it, I say didn't like about it, the one thing I'd like to have on top of what it already does is I'd like it to be a stereo reverb pedal, and I think once you've gone stereo with reverb, it's difficult to go back. I think there's a saying about that. I got the Walrus Audio Descent, I bought that second hand off of a forum, so this was literally the first time plugging that in and experimenting with it. Things that I generally don't tend to like too much are a straightforward shimmer effect. I find oftentimes it can do weird kind of things to make you sound out of tune. So I'm going to experiment with the Descent more, but I think it's stereo. I'm going to have to go back and listen, but that's kind of cool. I'm not exactly sure, I'm going to have to read the manual to work out how the expression pedal works with it, but that's a nice feature to have, to be able to control certain things with an expression pedal. That's what I think I get the most out of the modelers with. And this one here has that sustain, infinite sustain kind of thing, which I think is also a really powerful thing that the Timeline also has. Well, it's a reverb pedal. But yeah, I kind of like the sound of both of those. I personally think one of the interesting things that I read online quite a lot is that the Kemper reverbs are a bit lacking. Two things that I really like in the Kemper that I use quite a bit. There's the Cirrus reverbs, which are the cloud kind of based diffusion reverbs. I use them quite a bit. And then there's the church delay, which is like the crystal delay stuff, which to me is really close to that ice kind of stuff. So for that reason, I put the Kemper in kind of my list of these top kind of reverb devices. By the way, I haven't even explained what I'm doing. I'm using the Strymon Iridium at the start of all of these, just to keep the kind of core tone relatively consistent. So I've just got a Vox AC30 thing going on there, and then I'm going into the front of every device. So for instance, in the FM3 I have a cab and amp block turned off, and in the Kemper I've turned the stack off, so I'm just getting the sound of the reverb and the delay. It's kind of not how I would normally use a Kemper, but potentially if you've only got a Kemper or if you've only got one of these devices, I think generally the point of this video is that you can get these kind of sounds out of quite a lot of devices probably. So yeah, the Kemper I recorded, I'm using the church delay kind of setting, and which I think is like crystal. Yeah, so that's called dual crystal. Now the other thing that you can try for this kind of stuff doesn't necessarily have to cost you money. So coming out of the Kemper, I went into my digital audio workstation, Reaper. I'm just recording direct, so it's just the Iridium into the Kemper and then back out without any delay or reverb on it. But a plugin that I was being asked to try quite a bit was, is it Valhalla DSP? Their Supermassive plugin, which is this awesome reverb plugin, delay kind of reverb thing, which is free. And I'm using the preset here, Splashy Synth. To me it sounds pretty incredible. So if you haven't tried that and you're looking for these kind of sounds, then it's free, why wouldn't you? I think it sounds great. I kind of wish I'd found it before. I do use it quite a bit for kind of production, kind of creating sort of pads and stuff. I think it sounds really, really cool. And then the other thing, obviously I'm a Helix user, is to say you can get some of these sounds with kind of the Helix. Things you want to check out in there, maybe the Glitz reverb, maybe the Searchlights reverb, and also the Particle reverb. All of those and kind of combinations of those can get you this kind of really awesome washy infinite tail kind of sound. I think ultimately the thing that I like best about doing this in the modelling world is that you can kind of combine chains of different reverbs, which I think has a really cool sound, whereas just doing it on a pedal is not necessarily so easy. You don't have quite the flexibility, and I can't, for instance, just chuck an EQ after it, or I can't chuck another delay, or I can't chuck whatever I want to chuck after it, or another reverb even. And I think stacking reverbs and stacking delays and reverbs can help to get these kind of moving, kind of diffused reverb delay tails, which personally I'm a huge fan of. And the other thing is you can start to do things with expression pedals. So all of that to say, who wins the shootout? For me, I think if you're really interested in these intricate kind of delay lines and, you know, modifying everything, the FM3 or an Axe Effects type thing, you can get into the granular detail of what's happening in those delays. So in the Plex delay, for instance, you've got things like the Plex shift where you've got 8 delay lines and you can control the pitch of every single one of them and the modulation of every single one of them. And that's super powerful if you're trying to do this sort of thing. You can't really get to that same granular level of detail with the Helix, but you can do other cool stuff, of course, if you stack chains and things like that. But I think for me, the FM3 kind of wins if you're really wanting to get in there and tweak kind of what is happening in these delay trails and stuff and what's happening in the reverb cloud, and as well as I think maintaining pretty cool clarity. The Strymon Timeline I think just really sounds great in general. Yeah, I'm wondering, do I need to try Big Sky? Potentially. Again, I think the Kemper has more granular detail than I think a lot of people give credit for. You know, you can control the EQs, you can generally add ducking if you want it to duck with your playing. There's quite a lot of level of detail you can get into in the Kemper if you want to. Now, obviously you can't necessarily build quite as long chains as you can if you're in the Helix world, but you know, I still think the Kemper really does hold its own in this regard pretty well. And the reason that I prefer these, I think, generally over to something which is slightly more user-friendly or potentially slightly more basic to the Walrus Audio stuff, is that generally I could just do a little bit more with the modelers, I think. That's not to say that I'm not going to keep the Walrus Audio Slo and have that on a board for maybe when gigs are a thing, but going into an amp with a mono pedal like that, I think there's a good argument for doing that. There's not necessarily a massive need for me to have stereo pedals if I'm using a real amp. If I'm using a modeler and recording at home like this, I generally would want them to be stereo. I'm going to experiment with the Descent a bit more. Anyway, I don't know, what was the point of this? I just wanted to share some reverb sounds with you that I liked, really. If you want to get any of these presets, check in the description below. I think certainly the Kemper stuff I use on a few of my Kemper profiles that you can try out if you want. The Helix native, I think I was using a modified version of the Heaven Verb preset. I might even do another video with the Helix native stuff where I build kind of a futuristic kind of Helix patch where it's not limited by the DSP of the real Helix. That might be interesting to see what we can do in terms of like pitch shifting and stuff. Maybe we can get some even more wild sounds out of it. If you've not checked out an FM3 and you're not sure about what the kind of delays and reverbs look like on that, Leon Todd's done some really useful stuff on that stuff, which I was just watching last night before making this video. But things like the Plex delay and the multi-tap are super useful for this kind of thing. I just think that the reverb, the cloud reverbs in general, sound amazing as well. They all sound good basically, don't they? It's a good shootout. If you like this sort of video, you could like and subscribe if you got anything out of it. Sorry if you didn't. But yeah, that was just me trying to create an ambient wash of noise in my studio. Thanks for stopping by. Cheers.